All right. So good afternoon, Dr. Love.
Good afternoon.
We're very excited to have you here with us, especially as we're getting into your book, We Want to Do More Than Survive. So thank you. Thank you for joining us. We wanted to start off with this idea of mattering. So in chapter 1, you talk about this idea of we who are dark want to matter and live, not just to survive, but to thrive. Matter not for recognition or acknowledgement, but to create new systems and structures for educational, political, economic, and community freedom. It would mean we matter enough that our citizenship and the rights that come from with it are never questioned, reduced, or taken away, regardless of our birthplace or the amount of melanin in our skin. Just reading that right from the start, it struck a chord with both of us. So we're hoping that you can speak more about why mattering in schools, why it's imperative for our students.
Yeah, so, when I was writing the first chapter was supposed to be the introduction, and then my editor read it and said, oh, that's the first chapter. Because I really wanted to lay out this idea that we're in this moment where Black folks and co-conspirators and people of color are saying, Black lives matter. But what does that mean to matter? Like we haven't gotten to that next step. Mm-hmm. And so I really wanted to talk about what I think it means to matter as a Black person. And to first of all, to say that to be a Black person or to be a person of color and to live is to live a life of exhaustion. Mm-hmm. And so to be in this constant place of fighting for your humanity, to be in this constant place of trying to argue and shout and protest that we matter, we have to get back to thinking about what are we really asking and what do we want? Mm-hmm. And I wanted to talk about that within schools, and I wanted to talk about why mattering was so important. And mattering to me is people see your humanity. People see you as something that they are deeply tied to for their existence. Mm-hmm. So not that I matter to myself, I matter to you. That our lives are tied together, and that you are not good, or you are not whole, or you are not safe, or you are not well, or you are not healthy unless I am. Mm-hmm. And so we have to find ways that we matter to each other. And then we have to find ways that we make sure we matter politically, economically, socially, spiritually to each other. So I was trying to grapple with those ideas of what I think it means to matter. Mm-hmm. And and people say, well, I love kids. I don't need you to love me. I need you to see that I need you to respect me and see my humanity first. Then you love me. And so the idea to me was like, how can you love something you don't know? Mm-hmm. First that person has to matter to you. And so that's where the ideas of mattering. And I don't know if we'll get into chapter, 3 of the book or 4 of the book, where I talk about, growing up in Rochester. Mm-hmm. And that for me was I was trying to show what it meant to matter as a little kid, mm-hmm. to be politicized. Like I think that's what it means to matter, is to politicize kids. Mm-hmm. Is to talk to them about reality and help them understand the world that they're living in and how they change the world that they're living in. Mm-hmm. I grew up in these programs, FIST as a little kid, fighting ignorance, spreading truth. I grew up learning about Mandela, Angela Davis, the Black Panthers. I grew up knowing and having Black teachers. I grew up in a community that loved me and cared for me and protected me and saw me, and protected my potential. So, I don't mean mattering as in money. I mean mattering as in loving my humanity and what that means. So that's what I was trying to articulate.
Mm-hmm. When you say, Dr. Lowe, when you talk about this exhaustion, mm-hmm. because this idea of mattering and learning, about, who you are and politicizing, as you put the kids, does this add to the exhaustion, or will it, or what would it do to that piece when you talk about the exhaustion?
So I think to be a person of color, to be Black, is to live in a state of constant contradictions.
Sure. Yes.
That's what I think it is to be Black in this country. It is to walk in a room and decide how you're going to speak. It is to walk in a room and decide how your hair has to be. It is to walk in the room and try to position yourself as less threatening as possible. That is exhausting. It is to be in a room by yourself and there's items there and you have to say to yourself, okay, they left me alone with all these items. I have to feel like they're going to think I stole something. Like this is, I mean, you're constantly thinking these things as a person of color. It's exhausting. So then you have that life on one end where you're constantly making sacrifices. You're constantly judging what this should be. And then on the next end is trying to understand what's happening to you and why you feel this way. And that's also exhausting.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I don't think there's no middle ground where it's like, oh, I learned about all these injustices and I feel better. You learn about all these injustices and sometimes it weighs you down even more to just, being oblivious to this. Mm-hmm. But I will say, when you are politicized, it gives you language to understand what's happening to you. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It gives you a concept to understand what's happening to you. And when you're politicized, what's happening to you, you don't blame yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay.
And then also, you don't have the self-hatred, the self-loathing. Mm-hmm. You can look at yourself and see the beauty of yourself. Mm-hmm. But in the same breath, you also can put the blame on institutions and not people. Mm-hmm. So I can look at the school system and the failures of the school system, local, state, federal, and see it as an institution of whiteness, of racism. And that's a daunting thing. Mm-hmm. But in the same breath, I also know that there's nothing for me to be ashamed of. Vincent Brown out of Harvard talking about slavery, he says, Black folks have nothing to be ashamed of. Mm-hmm. We have nothing to be, we did not do this. We should walk around with our heads held up high. And so when you are politicized, what the kids call woke, right? When you are politicized, when you are woke, it gives you these ideas of dignity, of freedom, of love and compassion and understanding. It doesn't take away all the issues, but it does give you an understanding of what's happening to you. And for me, it's always about kids not blaming themselves and not blaming their communities and not blaming people that look like them for injustice and understanding squarely where that blame should be.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was one thing that we've talked about is how you've given us language to even talk about what's happening and what can happen, to see a different way, to see a path forward that's not gimmicky, that's not a Band-Aid solution, it's rolling up your sleeves and really doing some sustained systematic work with these being interconnected. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's one thing that we've been talking about in our own internal discussions has really resonated with us, and what is our role as a state agency and whatnot too. So thank you for that language.
No, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The other thing, speaking of language, that we wanted to unpack just a little bit more was this idea of abolitionist teaching. So. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So another question that we created was, the title of the book is extremely compelling. In the book, you define abolitionist teaching as the practice of working in solidarity with communities of color while drawing the imagination, creativity, refusal, remembering, visionary thinking, healing, rebellious spirit, boldness, determination, and subversiveness of abolitionists to eradicate injustice in and outside of schools. As we call out and dissolve discriminatory practices in education, what are some suggested first steps?
Whew, and I know Madison is going through a lot right now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think the first thing is to do what you're exactly doing, is, building a solid foundation of teachers, of parents, of students who are ready to get active, who are ready to be abolitionists, who are ready to be community organizers, right? And so the first thing you have to do is shore up your base. get folks involved, get folks knowledgeable, get them understanding the issues, the language, get everybody on the same accord. And sometimes that's slow work, right? And I think when you know issues are so pressing, you just want to go full force and you want to charge in. But when we do that, sometimes we lose people along the way. It's not organized as we would like. So sometimes this process has to be slow. But the first thing you have to do, I think, is to make sure that you have organized your base, that folks are on board, folks are understanding, folks feel empowered. And then you get together, and as I talk about in the book, to freedom dream and to organize and to find solidarity around the ways in which you want to fight systematic racism, the ways in which you want to fight injustice. And you do that in solidarity, and you do that together, and you take it one by one. And so Madison School District could really say, we want to have a plan that really talks about what happens when injustice happens in our schools. And we want the community to be involved with this board that we have set aside, this organization. We want to talk about that. But before we get to this point of only talking about when teachers harm our children or spirit murder our children, how are we taking steps to make sure that these colleges are teaching these students what they need to come into our schools? How are we going to make sure that the principals and school leaders are hiring teachers who are culturally competent? So we want to be, proactive to make sure that on the front end this doesn't happen, and if it does happen on the back end, we're going to catch them in both places.
Right.
So I think it's up to the community to think about ways in which, and that's why the book is not a cookbook. That's not why the book is like, do this, do that, because every community has to do their own particular type of work. So I was very cautious not to say, you do these 8 things and you're good. That's not how it works. But what we do know, and a good friend of mine, an unbelievable professor and researcher, Dave Stovall, always says this. He says, they would make you think that one person can be a revolution. They'll give one person a job as the dean of diversity. They'll give one person the job as the dean of equity, the chief equity, and those are great jobs. I'm not knocking those jobs, but those jobs always disappoint. Yes. Because it's one person. And we know political movements do not happen with one person. That is ahistorical of how movements happen. Has to be with the people. So always understanding that institutions are going to say, okay, you know what? I see you're upset. We'll give you a dean of diversity. Right. Okay. Now everybody's like, okay, good. Okay, now we have somebody in there. They're going to make change. They're not going to make substantial change. It's one person, but that's how institutions work. And so always to be in solidarity, to be meeting regularly, to be reading regularly, to make sure that your group of people are as educated and as thoughtful and as understanding the nuances, so everybody can be on one accord. And then you start to plan in solidarity. Here is our 10-point plan. Here are the things we want done. And this is how we want to do it. And always bring problems and solutions. Don't let them give you the solutions. Sometimes we come with all the problems, but no solutions. Come with solutions that are developed by the community, because then you have buy-in. And as educators, we can never forget our community organizers on the ground. Yes. Lean on them. They know how to do this work. They're doing the work. And so those are just like a few steps that I would take to make sure that the community is deeply embedded and thinking deeply about the issues, but also the solutions for the issues. And that there's community buy-in for those solutions. Because believe me, everyone knows the problems. Now, they may not know how deep the problems are, the language of the problems, but folks know the problems. Do they all agree on the solution? And we're not always going to agree, but that's what solidarity is. It's not about we all agree. It's about, okay, we're going to move in this direction.
Yeah, I was just working with a group on Friday, community members, and one thing that keeps coming up is people are tired. They're tired of talking. They want action,
Yep.
action. They're tired of talking. And so we were holding a circle, and it was just like, but we need action.
Yep.
So I think this is helpful information to think about how you can be systematic and interconnected about it, to have that base, because otherwise I think if it's that one person who's going out too far ahead, you get exhausted too. It adds to that different kind of exhaustion, and you feel a little defeated. I know that was a conversation that we had about just about, if you read this as a teacher by yourself, you might feel overwhelmed. Like, how can I make a difference? How can I do more when I'm already doing so much for my kids? So that was one of the things that struck a chord with us.
And we have to remember that most of these communities that we're talking about, they have been lied to, they have been cheated, so they want action.
They do.
Like I said, they know the issues. They want some type of action, but it has to be in solidarity, because they've also have seen people come into their communities, tell them what they need to do, and have no buy-in. So, the action can't just be swift where we don't get buy-in from the community, but it can't be so much talking that we don't get anything done. So there's a fine line. And that's why community organizers and people who are on the ground are so important to the movement.
Great, thank you. Another idea that came up when we were talking is about students, abolitionist students, learners, like how, what we can do to support our own kids within the system, giving them language. Any advice or insight on that?
Yeah, so I think, we have to start building. Let me say this. No school is perfect. Even our best schools are not going to give students everything that they need. However, I truly, deeply believe that when you're teaching students of color, the best thing you can do is politicize them. And so we know that curriculums are not built for students of color to be politicized. And the same thing for white students. White students need to understand injustice. White students need to understand their privilege. White students need to understand how this world works and how injustice is produced time and time again. So if we want to do something for students, we need to build those classes. And if we can't build those classes inside of school, we build them outside of schools. We offer programs, Saturday mornings, they come, they get their snacks, and it's a family, and they learn from their ancestors. They learn from historians. They learn from community organizers, right? We have to start building that community and that structure, either in our schools or outside our schools, but we know this is what the kids need. They need to feel empowered, but you can only feel empowered when you know yourself, when you know your history. So we have to do those particular type of things. And I just wholeheartedly know for myself, for my own kids, for my students, what it means to know your history, what it means to know who you are, and what it means to know that you can fight. Right? We talk a lot to kids about oppression, but we don't talk to them about resistance.
Right.
So how do we have those classes? Who teaches those classes? How do we bring that into schools? And then we want to talk about helping our kids, what's the counselor ratio in schools? Where are the therapists? Where are the healers? Where are the actual healers, folks who heal, folks who talk about healing and gardens and love and joy? Like, where are those folks? They got to be in the schools. And so these are things that, cost money, but they're not like revolutionary.
No.
We need therapists, we need healers, we need counselors. We need kids to have breaks in the day that's just truly about joy. Now here's 30 minutes every day. You do your passion. That's drawing, that's music, that's acting, that's singing, that's computer coding. Where do we have structured time where students are just going to do their passion at school.
Mm-hmm.
So they actually understand, like, this is a place that wants you to do your love and your joy and your passion. Like, you can't tell me in a school day there's no time to build in a child's interest in schools.
Right. Right.
When you mentioned the word politicize, politicizing students. And, when I hear that, I have my own definition in my head about what that looks like, what that means. And, again, speaking to that ideal that, getting everybody on the same page, building that foundation. So when you say that, to politicize students, expound on that a little bit more.
Okay. So when I say politicize students, what I mean is that you begin to understand who you are in the world in relationship to all your identities.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a Black queer woman. I understand myself as a Black woman, as a lesbian, as an inner city kid. I mean, when you read the book, all of me is in that book.
Mm-hmm.
My queerness is in the book. My Blackness is in the book. My upstate New Yorkness is in the book. Like who I am is in the book. And so when you are politicized, you don't just learn just about, African Americans. You learn about who you are, the full totality of yourself, right? So we're going to learn about Islam, we're going to learn about trans people, we're going to learn about the totality of the people in our community.
Mm-hmm.
And then understanding how you fit into that, how you see yourself into that. And so what we want you to do is to be a full person who understands what that means to be a full person. Mm-hmm. And then you see other people's fullness.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right? I see other people's humanity, and I'm learning from all of these folks. Mm-hmm. So that's for me what it means to be politicized.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, good. Well, thank you. Any words for us to get us ready for your visit? So any?
I'm really excited. I heard it's like sold out or something already.
Yeah, within 24 hours it was. So over 700 people. Mm-hmm.
Wow. I think I got to get ready. No, I'm just really excited. I'm just really excited. I don't know what to say. Just to know that I don't even know what to say. That's just astonishing. So I just want to come and do a great job. But I will say that I am going to challenge everyone there. Mm-hmm. That I'm coming to give a talk, and I'm happy to do it, and it's wonderful. But the job is after my talk. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited to get everyone riled up. I'm excited to talk about these things with everyone, and I'm excited to think with everyone deeply about what transformations can happen. But that's the work.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Mm-hmm. That's the work.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm excited about that. I'm actually, so my wife and I, we're going to launch the Love Family Project in fall of 2020. Okay. And that will be us trying to put these ideas of the book into action.
That's fabulous. Good. We're excited for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I mean, that's what this is about. Is to put these ideas into action and to take our time and to try and do it well. Mm-hmm. But one thing I want to stress, and I will stress, is that whatever we do, people of color, everyone deserves humanity, no matter how we do it. And that's why my wife and I are moving really slow, because whatever we put out, we want it to be like the best service for Black folks. Mm-hmm. We want Black folks like, oh my God, this place is just beautiful. I mean, we want them to feel beautiful. Mm-hmm. So I think that's sometimes the work that we forget is like, to do this work is to be a servant. Yeah. It's to serve. And to give people good stuff, right? Yeah. So yeah, I'm excited. I can't believe the turnout and the enthusiasm, and I'm just really humbled by that. So I'm ready.
Yeah, well, we're excited. We're excited. We're ready.
Yeah.
We've got so many book circles, study circles going on with your book at different levels, state level, district level, school levels. So we're excited about just being able to come together, hear you, and get our marching orders.
Well, thank you all so much.
There's who's coming not just from Madison, but also from the Milwaukee area and around the state. It'll be very interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
We're ready. All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Love, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Oh, thank you so much. Please make sure I see you in real life.
Yes, we can't wait. Have a good one.
Sounds perfect. Good.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Take care.